Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. This is your host, Christian Bacasa. We have this week a special guest, a friend of mine that I've been working with in particular on fly tables, and that's Cris Jackson from Lone Buffalo Fly Tables. That's lonebuffaloflytables.com if you want to check them out there. But Cris, you've been making custom tables for a while now. We've worked together on some things. In fact, I picked up a smaller table of yours, a travel table called the Nomad, and have been using it. It's in fact, right here by my desk. As quick as that, I can pull it up. Great little table to use on the go. I've used my own vise, etc. on it. Take it to fly tying nights, whatnot. So on today's show, we're going to get to know Cris a little bit, but we're going to talk about some fishing in his local area of the Ozarks. And then we're going to give you guys some advice at the end on how to choose and pick a fly tying table if that's something you're interested in, and go from there. So, Cris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christian. It's great to be here. Great to be here.
Yeah. So do me a favor. Tell me a little bit about how you got into the fly tying table space and business.
Okay. Uh, Years ago, I got into the tie flying and fly fishing arena, and being kind of a cheapskate that I am, I didn't want to go and buy somebody else's flies, so I decided I'd tie my own. And my wife wasn't real hip on clamping vices to the sides of the kitchen table or the cabinet or whatever.
Right.
So what I did was I had dabbled in some woodworking, just goofing off, and I went out in my garage and I thought I'm going to build something. And I looked around at Bass Pro and places like that. Well,
Right.
they all had all these big plywood chunks, and I didn't think they had much character or much proper design. So I just went out in the garage and built me one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then when your first project, tell us a little bit about that. What were some of the things that led you down that road of maybe I
The
want to
first,
do this or not
yeah, the
that?
first one I built, I kind of went into it relatively blind. I just kind of tried to sit back and think about what would be advantageous to a tire and where would I like things. And it came out kind of looking like my present day tables, kind of, but um, I've learned a lot in the situation
Yeah.
in the years that passed since then. So it was really not very good when I look back at it. But what it did was it prompted me later on in life, after life changes and kids get older and times change, and I
Uh-huh.
am nearing retirement age, and I thought I probably need something to do during retirement. So I thought, well, I'm going to
Okay.
design a better table,
Okay.
and so I sat down and put this table together and got a hold of some people and said, "What do you think?" And I got a call from a guy who has an online store, and he said, "Man, I love these. Can I put them in my store?" Well, I
Hmm.
don't know. Let's talk. So we met at a little bar, and over some bar snacks and a couple of beers, we looked at it, and he said, "I think this is really good." And we made a couple little design changes, and I went
Off
home
to
and
the
built it.
races. Yeah.
Off to
Right
the
on. Right on.
races. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
No, there's a
So it
lot
worked
of.
out really well.
I like it. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it. People sometimes don't understand. I mean, going down to the raw wood and planing it all down to the same size, and you've got inlays that, or maybe you call matchups of different
Yeah.
wood grains and types that you have to glue up and clamp and make sure are solid, and then again maybe replane it or put a finish on, sand on
Hmm.
it, and then I mean, it's like
Exactly.
people wonder why, hey, a small table like that, why is it a hundred and I think $59 or something like that? And you start to go, okay, well, let's think about the man hours that go into it and the parts and those finer grade woods aren't cheap scenarios. So Good on you, man. You've got a bunch of tables on the site. Again,
I do.
if you guys are interested in seeing some of the other tables and whatnot, of course, you can see this one on the YouTube channel or the video podcast, but the other tables are on lonebisonflytables.com or go to Instagram, which is Lone Bison Tables, right? At Lone Bison Tables.
Lone Bison Tables. Yeah, I believe that's what
Yep. Yeah.
Instagram is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a whole lot
Cool.
of lone bison stuff out there, so you'll stumble
Right,
on
right. So while we're on that subject, before we dive into the fishing, tell us a little bit about what was it, the National Buffalo Foundation. I know
Yeah,
you have some support mechanisms on the website for them.
I do, and I wanted to try to give back to something, and I didn't want to just do puppies or something like that, and as a history teacher, I've always loved the bison, nature's greatest animal in North America. And I got an order from a lady up in southwestern South Dakota who owns the 777 Bison Ranch, which
Okay.
was the ranch that was used in the movie, um, with Kevin Costner. Um,
I know the movie, but I can't think of the name off the
yeah,
top of my head. Yeah.
that was the buffalo herd and all
Right,
of
right.
that. And she bought a table from me, and then she said, "Well, would you be interested in helping support?" And I said, "Well, I'd really be interested in getting some bison hair and be able to put it in little bags to my customers, kind of along with my lone bison idea." She said,
Uh-huh.
"Well, I'll take care of all that." So she's like president or one of the officers for the National Buffalo Foundation. She hooked
Okay.
me up with bison hair for dubbing and some cards and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's really a great organization to be a part of.
Yeah. That's cool. That is very cool.
Yeah.
Where do you think that um that came from for you? That willingness to give back, or should I say want, want to give back to community, etc.
You know, I'm a public school teacher,
Hmm.
and if money was a motivator to me, I would not be in this field. And so, I like to give back to the kids who don't much have a chance academically.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always kind of favored the underdog in different things. It just seems like the right thing to do. That if you've got an opportunity to share some things with other people, whether it be money or be time or energy or effort,
Right.
I think we're obligated to do that with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. You are in a amazing place for fishing. You're in the Ozark areas. There's warm water. There's
Mhm.
cold water. There's a lot to do. So let's kind of dive into that and
Absolutely.
talk about maybe the area first, and then break down what you like to focus on in particular.
Yeah, sure. Um, I live near Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is on the edge of the geologic formation called the Ozark Plateau. And so, if we take about an hour and a half east of us, we get into the beginnings of the actual Ozarks. And so there's lots of small streams around that are perfect to throw a canoe in or to just put on your shorts and a cap and sunglasses and tennis shoes and go
Right.
wade it. And beautiful smallmouth, beautiful gravel bottoms. I mean, they're perfect habitat for the smallmouth bass.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that, we have, for example, the Illinois River, which the upper Illinois is perfect smallmouth. But then you get into it, it empties into what is called Lake Tenkiller, which is a huge impoundment. And out of Lake Tenkiller comes the lower Illinois, which is a cold water fishery that has
Okay.
outstanding trophy sized trout in it.
Okay.
Just heard the other day that browns are being stocked in there, and we hope that they take on the breeding capabilities and can actually maintain themselves in that cold water fishery.
Yeah.
If you continue on a couple hours further east, we have the White River, which is
Right.
a world class trout stream. I mean to
Yeah.
tell you
Amazing
what, there are
fishery.
monster trout taken out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
We
so
fish
we have
there
quite an
quite a bit.
array of opportunities. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. People
Okay.
don't give this area as, they always think of the Western rivers or the New England rivers as being the place for trout fishing. But I mean, I think we got some pretty good stuff around here.
Yeah, and I think more and more people are starting to discover that area. Of course, the White River has grown immensely in population.
Hmm.
I fish there almost every year. A
Hmm.
great fishery, Norfolk and et cetera, all
Yeah.
around there.
Hmm.
But I think the other thing that's been really interesting is what you had mentioned before is more and more fly fishermen moving into the warm water species of smallmouth bass and et cetera, and realizing that those guys will slam topwater, dry flies and whatnot as
Oh, they'll
well,
kill it.
and
They'll
the
kill it.
there are a ton of streams that have that availability to you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, really cool. There's
Yeah.
one over by there's like the Buffalo River, I think it is, over by the
Yeah.
White
Sure.
that a lot of people
Hmm.
fish. It's a smaller stream, but it's the smallmouth fishing is
Right.
incredible there.
And
Yeah.
there's a place called Crooked Creek over
Okay.
in eastern Arkansas that is called a blue ribbon smallmouth stream. But the
Okay.
difficulty with that is most of the property is privately owned, and so
Oh,
it's
okay.
very difficult to get on the river or to get off of it without going for 2.5 days, um, which
Ah,
which is good and bad. I mean, it creates a great fishery, but it makes it kind of
yeah.
tough for guys to get on it.
Go
So,
after work, right? You
right,
know,
right, right.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Beautiful area. Beautiful area.
what in your area? When I go to the White River, I fly into Missouri. Is it probably easier to fly directly into Tulsa for
No, not necessarily. You could fly into Springfield, Missouri, or Joplin, Missouri.
okay?
I know there's a large airport in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
All of those places are within an easy drive
Yeah.
to the White River. And if
Okay.
if you happen to pilot your own plane or have that ability, there's lots of smaller airports that will get you right down there
In a
in a
hurry.
hurry, and
Yeah.
get you in and out with no problem. And they'll
Okay.
probably wash your plane while you're there.
Yeah. But to fish the Ozarks in general, is it kind of the same scenario with regard to getting in and out those same locations?
Yeah, it's not all that hard. There's some pretty good maps out there, and there's enough people around that hit these places that you can find in and outs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of it has a lot of commercial type floats on them,
Mm-hmm.
but if you those fish seem to not be bothered by them too much. I mean, they're used to flying beer cans and canoes coming through. So
Yeah.
if you can find a time of year, particularly in the winter, you can get out there and be by yourself all you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when we go is February time
Yeah.
frame
Hmm.
to the White, and we do more streamer fishing that time of year,
Hmm.
or you know, uh, I've seen some of the video from like prolific caddis hatches and things like that. Looks just incredible. What? Why don't you kind of walk through for us just a little bit about maybe some of the seasons and what you've seen over the years, and maybe even just touch a little bit too on something that's been problematic for a lot of people, and that's ticks. What the tick scenario is in that area
Right.
going out.
Right. Yeah. We do have some prolifically hot summer. And a lot of these smaller streams really uh, lose a lot of their water levels, and so
Okay.
you end up, if you want to travel very far in a raft or a small boat, you end up dragging a lot. So
Hmm.
during the hot summer months, if you are going to get on that, you're going to have to do wading.
Okay.
The problem is then with that is, like you said, getting up on the bank and fighting off the ticks and chiggers.
Hmm.
We don't have too much Lyme disease issues. Doesn't seem
Okay.
that our ticks are infected by that, but I think it's just a matter of time.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, that's one of the drawbacks that we really have around here. But during the fall, and when we start getting a little bit of change in the leaves and the trees start going into more of a dormant stage and not sucking up the water, we have perfect conditions, absolutely perfect conditions. You get the commercial floaters off the river, and I mean, I've been on the Kings River, which is over by Eureka Springs, that time of year, and I've gone for 8 or 10 miles and never seen another person, um,
Yeah.
which is
That's awesome.
highly unusual.
Yeah.
But you get away from the insect issues. The weather is very very nice. The water is still warm enough to, you don't have to wear waders. Um,
Right.
but the definite weather patterns and seasons definitely change your fishing habits.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great. And yourself, what's the style or technique that you kind of prefer? You would, dry fly, dry dropper,
Yeah,
whatever was working that day, guy, or give us a
I've
little more
got a
color there.
I love to learn, and I love to explore new things. And I've got a buddy here who guides full time, and he has done some outstanding research with state biologists on
Hmm.
the food for the smallmouth. And
Okay.
he's come up with a couple fly patterns that it's been scientifically shown in that particular watershed that this is like 92% of their food.
Oh, wow.
And for years, I had always thrown crawdad patterns, or little
Right.
streamers of some kind, or maybe a leech pattern or something like that. And and you're okay. But this guy is pulling out 6.5 pound smallmouth on pretty
On a,
regular basis.
on a
And
smaller
he
stream.
has, yeah. And, he said that those fish are in there. You're just using the wrong flies. And he said he still has arguments with people about, well, I've always used this fly, or, whatever it might
Right.
be. But, I like to throw kind of the streamer pattern, kind of the minnow imitation, um, something fuzzy, you
Hmm.
know, and always had some pretty good luck on smallmouth. I just love the smallmouth bass. Um, Part of my thing is I think trout are persnickety, and
Yeah.
I like the smallmouth because they'll just wear you out on a good day.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. They're a little more opportunistic, a little more aggressive. It seems like,
yeah,
whatever. Uh,
yeah.
Cheeseburger,
They'll
steak,
almost,
same thing.
yeah. That's right. That's right. Just looks like something to eat, so I'll go
Right.
grab it. Mm. Whereas,
As
the trout seem to be, they want it on a silver platter or something.
right, right, right. When
Yeah.
you mentioned trout, you were talking earlier about some of the cold water fisheries, et cetera. What's your approach on trout? Like, are you focused on brown trout more, or do you like to go fish for cutthroat? Tell us a little bit about that.
The brown trout that come out of the White River, for example, are
Hmm.
so large that it seems like that's the only thing people fish for.
Hmm.
So, I'm not that picky. I'm not really after those trophy fish. I'm out
Hmm.
there because I love to fish. I love to get out into nature and that sort of thing. But um, I can see where that would be the ones that you would want to go after.
Yeah.
But my thinking on the trout is, um, I just want to be out there and see what I can bring to the net.
Yeah. And you're right. The White River, it's so chock full of food. I mean, you talk about the shad hatch, right?
Oh
Um,
gosh,
Gosh, I mean, it's incredible when it's happening, and you can see how those fish just put on weight and size and etc. But
well
you go up into
you can
some of
just
those
watch them.
others, yeah, yeah, you can. You can watch them just chomp
Yeah,
on the shad. It's
yeah,
pretty crazy. But you go into some of those other rivers, and the fishing is just incredible. They may not be, the 30 inchers that you're
hmm,
seeking for the trophy, but they're good, healthy, strong fish, beautiful coloring, etc.
absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, very healthy fisheries around here. The state and some of the organizations just do a great job of preserving the fishery and making sure that it's taken care of and really grown and preserved.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that area has a particularly long growth season as well. I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah. We
temperatures
do.
don't get really cold, um, and you can go there midwinter and fish. And then you have
Absolutely.
these long seasons, and you do have some warm water, issues, etc. in the summer, but there's plenty of other things to do, and I think in a lot of smaller or larger dam fed areas where the water temps stay high, etc. So it's a
Yeah,
great fishery.
yeah. We'll get a few days of maybe snow or we tend to get a lot of ice storms, but it's not like it's 10 below or it's maybe 31, 30 degrees, and
Yeah,
that's still very manageable. And
yeah,
you really do see a lot of people taking advantage of that. So you can get your time on the river about any time of year,
yeah.
yeah, which makes this
Uh,
really a nice area.
and
Yeah,
as I mentioned,
perfect.
I typically go in February,
Hmm.
and although I will admit there was a couple years ago, one day where it was probably, I don't know, 1 o'clock, and I was like, done, man.
Yeah, you're down there
I
in
think
that valley.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we threw streamers for like 3 days. It was like day 4. We went out, and it was just hammering this like icy rain
Hmm.
and wind,
Hmm.
and we just we weren't having any success. And I just you would because that river, a lot of people don't know, on that White River, you um you motor up the river, and then
Hmm.
you float down, and then you motor up again.
Right.
And man, they're like, all right, reel them in, and we're gonna motor up. It's just like, oh my god, here comes the
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I do remember that was a tough day. We got into a
Yeah.
couple
That
fish.
wind comes right down that river valley, and it's relentless.
Yeah, we were in all our rain gear and everything, and we were all still soaking
Yeah, you
wet.
didn't have enough. You didn't
No,
have enough. You
I
couldn't
don't
put
think
on
you
it.
could.
Right.
Everybody, even our guy was like, "Yeah, thanks, guys. I
Right.
really appreciate that."
Yeah, it's time to go to the
So,
bar. Yeah.
right. So that's what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
let's talk. Let's dive in. We got a couple more minutes left. We can go in about 10, 15 minutes or so here. Talk about the tables themselves. So how do we set our listeners and viewers up um, to pick the right table? What should they look for from your perspective, etc.?
Christian, just kind of off the top of my head thinking about this, you oftentimes hear tires talk about that they can't find their tools when they need them. The material is laying out on their desk, and their whip finisher is buried up under somewhere. You know,
Hmm.
um, and so I think part of my approach to this whole thing was making yourself more efficient, and the time that you spend at the vice is time well spent, because in our busy world, a lot of times we don't get to do those kind of things.
Right. Yeah.
Whether
That's a
it
good point.
be our kids banging us to come out and do things, or last minute tying to go on a trip, whatever it might be, we need to be efficient. So when
Hmm.
I looked at some of the tables that were being offered commercially, they were huge. They were, just I mean, I don't know another word besides huge or monstrous. And I think all it did was take your huge mess and put that huge mess in a smaller space. You still have the huge mess,
Right. Right.
you know. So kind of my idea on my tables, and the Nomad, which you mentioned earlier, I kind of designed that one to um, encourage you to find the tools that you're going to use. Um, it's got slots for 12 tools. So,
Hmm.
I mean, you can tie most things with 12 tools and a
Yeah.
couple bobbins, you know.
Right. Right. I'll show
Made a
the
small,
I'll show the
yeah,
table again here, just so if you guys again, if you're on YouTube, or on the video podcast, this is what the table looks like. It's really
yeah,
quite simple.
yeah, it's very
Um,
simple.
and as you mentioned, um, it's helped me because there's two types of tying that I do. One is my creative time where I'm going to try and figure something out and make something up. And I
Hmm.
might need more space for that because I'm going to have a lot of materials out, or I won't have the recipe per se, right?
Right,
But when I go to fly tie night, or I go to just whip up some bugs for a trip, it's usually two or three types of bugs, and that's about it. So I set the materials aside. I know the recipe. I know what tools I need, and that's all I need is that tiny little
right,
space.
right, right. And one of my things on that particular table was, you've tied up a bunch of 12s, but you get out on the river and you found out that you now need 16s.
Yeah.
And so you can throw that little table in your backpack, throw a few fly tying materials in a bag or whatever, and you can just go park yourself on a bench or a raft or wherever, and you've got you a little fly tying station just right there. The vise is very simple. It snugly holds that uh, that vice stem, and
Yeah.
you take it in and out very quickly. Um,
Yeah. You're talking about
does it just with your
the
fingers?
chuck, right? That was one of
Yeah,
my favorite features. You just loosen
yeah,
up your chuck, and then there you go. Your vice is up. That the storage is really nice too.
yes,
This is a peak vice. That's what I use, a peak vice. And for me, one of the things that I really liked about the chuck scenario was I don't have to take an Allen key.
right.
Because on my peak base, I got to use an Allen key to get it in and out and whatnot. Or
Or
if it's a
the
little
or the
twisted, I can adjust it real easy
yeah,
with the chuck.
right.
Yeah, it works really well.
Or the little finger screw, that's hard to get loose sometimes,
Right, right.
with your fingers, you know. And a couple other features on that table are the recesses are magnetized, so you
Mm-hmm.
can throw hooks or finished flies or whatever in there, and they're not going to blow out, or spill.
Mm-hmm.
Part of and I hope you found it, but underneath that table are two really large, strong magnets that you can attach to the hood of your truck, or
Mm.
anywhere that you can find a metal surface, so that if you're tying outside somewhere, you're not chasing that little table all over the place,
Right.
and
Okay.
it's not going to mar anything up. It's got a pad on the bottom.
Yep.
There's been some thought. There's been some thought and some
That's
design
cool.
that went into that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know about the magnets. I mean, I've been using it wintertime primarily, and I'm in Utah this year. I mean, we've got gosh, almost 900 inches of snow. So it's been pretty brutal from a snowpack
Yeah,
tying
yeah,
outside. I don't, but I could
right.
see, throwing that up on your tailgate with a camp chair. Like you said, all right, I'm fishing this river. I'm going to whip up, a bunch of these in a different size because, I think that's where we're at for tomorrow or this evening hatch, etc. And yeah, great. It's I love my little table, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Right, right. And that's where the
One
idea
of
came from. Yeah, it was a young guide who said, I need something I can just throw in the back seat or throw in my backpack and be able to tie for myself and for clients, wherever I'm at. So
mhm.
tried to tried to follow that particular train of thought, and that's what I came up with.
Okay. All right. Well, I know we have a special offer for our listeners too on that. Let me make sure I get the code right for us here. Um, I think it's yeah, Lone Bison 2023. That'll get you 15% off on a Nomad table specifically. So if you guys are interested, just use that at your checkout when you go to
Exactly.
the Lone Bison website. So it's lonebisonflytables.com. You can use that code, but you have other tables, devices, etc. You have
I do.
everything
Hmm.
from fly display. I don't know what you would call
Little
pieces,
display
right?
blocks, if you will.
Display blocks, right?
Hmm.
You have larger tables. You have tool caddies that are separate from a table themselves. Talk a little bit about that and why you might go with a bigger table or why you might go with some of those other items, etc.
Yeah, one of my larger tables is called the Heritage, and it's modular in design where there's a couple pieces that actually snap on and off of the table so that one you can put those pieces where you are more comfortable in using them. Off to the right, off to the left, in front, whatever it might be that holds your more used tools, and then they snap back on when you don't need that open tying space. Um, but they tend to be um, the size where I've had customers say, "Oh, I just go get in my recliner and watch a movie and put the table on my lap," or as everything's right there with my materials beside me, or they put it on top of their tying desk, and it requires them then to become more organized. One of
Okay.
my first customers turns his camera off in meetings and sits and pulls his table over in front of him and ties while he's in a corporate meeting. So those tables are quite versatile, and I think they're beautiful. I
Yeah.
even my own work. I kind of sit back and go, "Wow, God made some beautiful lumber there."
Yeah.
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 So
No, I agree. There's some wood types in there that you've used. I don't know them by heart or what they may be, but some of them with the different grain types like curly maples and things like that I've seen
mhm.
that just look amazing. And the way that you're laminating them up and giving some variation, and you can tell you put a lot of thought into how it plays into the modular aspect of the tables as well when you're building it out. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah.
You got a great handcrafted product. It's
Thanks.
not easy to come by these days. So.
One of the things that I take a little bit of pride in is I don't buy very often commercial lumber. I get
Mm,
things out of scrap piles. Um, I go to a sawmill and get their leftovers, and I
mhm.
just make them work. So that's kind of a little bit of a piece that I'm proud of when I put these tables together.
Yeah. My
Yeah,
dad was, he dabbled in woodworking while I was a kid, and I can appreciate that because we always had scraps around.
sure,
As a kid, it was like, oh, I need a piece of wood to block a tire on the go kart or whatever it was, and
that's
then
right,
he's
exactly.
like, That's a good piece of oak. What are you doing with that thing? Yeah. So you're
Yeah,
ready to
like,
rip my arm off with the oak. So
that's right.
I can
I want to
appreciate it.
build a ramp, and Dad gives you one 2x4.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
So
that's so funny. Yeah,
yeah.
I know. Remember a lot of good stories with the woodworking stuff, and
Oh, I
he saw
love
your
it.
table.
Love it.
He definitely appreciated it as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, again, kudos
Yeah.
to you.
It's very therapeutic, if you will, to just be able to get out there in a wood shop and turn on some bluegrass music and, periodically give my dog a wood scrap to go chew on,
Right,
or
right.
whatever. It's kind of my happy place.
Cool, cool. Well, let me ask you
Yeah.
this: if you had a fishing tip for our guests, what would your fishing tip be?
Um, I think probably is just try all kinds of different waters. Um,
I like that.
anywhere there's a fish available, just see what you can do. I think you learn a lot. Um, that's going to make you a better, say, trout fisherman by fishing for other species and learning what they do and what they don't do, which is going to make you a better trout fisherman or whatever it might be. Um, so I think my tip or my encouragement would be just try everything. Just go wherever and try things and see what happens.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just go
It's
for it.
funny you chose that topic. I wholeheartedly agree. That's something that we talk about quite a bit on the podcast is building your repertoire of skills as it
Hmm.
relates to fishing in different waters, different species, different casting techniques. And, my mentality has always been the more moves you have in your repertoire, you're a lot like I kind of adapted it from Bruce Lee, right? He
Sure,
was the
sure.
he was the guy that came up through a very rigid program, right?
Hmm.
And then said, wait a minute, let's take a broader look here. If I have more moves in my repertoire, I can adapt to more situations. And you look at guys like I'm a Pennsylvania guy. I've followed George Daniels for years. Same thing. You read his book Dynamic Nymphing. It's exactly that. He's like, hey, look, there's times where tight line nymphing is the way to go. There's times where
Exactly.
having a bobber and I can get a 30-foot drift over and over again is the way to go. There's a time where a coil and swamp water is the way to go. But if I don't have those moves in my repertoire, I don't recognize when the opportunity is there, and B, I don't have the skill or technique to utilize it. So, yeah,
Yeah, you don't even know
great
what
tip.
you have.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, great tip. Well,
Yep.
Chris, again, it's been great having you on the show. I've appreciated my handcraft advice quite a bit. I'm probably going to pick up some other modular items as well. Maybe replace my old piece of driftwood I've drilled up here. Yours are a little higher quality than
Those are
mine.
some pretty good stories, though. I don't know if I'd replace
Yeah,
that or yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So,
Well,
but
I've listened to your podcast on numerous occasions, and I'm really honored that you chose me to be a part of it. I'm really humbled by that, Christian. So I appreciate it.
well, hey, we love hearing all kinds of stories. Everybody's got one, right? That's the old
Everybody's got one.
saying. But and our listeners, I think we all understand. There's something to learn from each segment, each guy. It doesn't always have to be about the where the bug needs to be in the water. Sometimes it's just about
Exactly.
fishing or the other tools that go along with the trade. So thanks
It's
again for
very
being
true.
on the show, Chris. If you do want to get a hold of Chris, Chris, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can email me at lonebisonflytables at gmail.com. You can go to lonebisonflytables.com, which is the website, and there's a way of getting hold of me there. My phone number is there. You can just call me directly,
Okay.
um, and we can talk about whatever it is you want.
Okay. Yeah, and check out the website, lonebisonflytables.com. If you're interested in a nomad, use that checkout code,
Hmm.
LoneBison2023. talk to you soon.
Exactly.
Thanks again, Chris.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
Hey, thanks, Christian. Appreciate it.